I'm looking at a whole bunch of poster boards that I thought was a meeting. Instead, they want us to look at the poster boards at all their wonderful work there. Anyway, showing the initial events and mitigation. Green looks good, but green is actually under safety evaluation. Moving to the next one.
Dominion came back to us again a few weeks ago and said, we've changed our mind again.
At the plant. Greg Holcomb is the senior resident inspector of North Anna. He's an employee of the NRC who shows up every day at the plant here at North Anna. And his job is to inspect the performance of the North Anna plant. I also have Matthew Heiser. He's an engineer out of Reactor's office? Research, I'm sorry. The research office is in Atlanta, or in White Flint. And he's here on a rotation, but he is basically inspector qualified, so he also knows about our inspection process. The purpose of this meeting, like I said, is to review the performance of the North Anna plant for the calendar year 2012. And the way we had this meeting is we would like, rather than just give a presentation, we'd like to personalize it for exactly what you want to know. So if you don't mind, one of the three of us, Scott Burnell, is from Public Affairs Office. He knows a lot about nuclear power also. Just talk to us. Give us the questions you have, and we'll answer them to the best of our abilities. And we plan on being here until 7 o'clock tonight. So we'll talk as long as it takes to do the best we can to answer your questions. Okay? Thank you.
And you shut down our the different geological because of that. You know,
it's just a it doesn't instantly cool.
The Department of Energy had submitted an application panel. The NRC was reviewing it.
I think that's why the energy
Withdrew it. So we're not going to work on that.
there is a case before the DC. I think that's what we feel on that region.
where even
There were a number of factors.
party elements
Essentially sued the Department of Energy and the NRC.
Part of the deal was
even when it shut down,
replacing
and we're waiting for about 30 days to have ourselves, but they're still
did that. We didn't pay for that.
That's a separate
we did and they put in
The short answer is,
I mean, it was
just not a current
very good shape. What we well, yeah, but you know,
after something stable, unless they decay, the energy.
hey, they didn't.
the agency
They had all the
has had
It's going to
for several years, more than a decade,
well, yeah, but there's
what's referred to as the waste confidence decision, which essentially says that the country will have a long-term solution for spent fuel.
Yeah, what 70 days, you know.
And
That's what the court finally said.
due to the length of time that it's taken Yucca Mountain and now the ongoing process to find that solution, the NRC has revised the waste confidence decision a couple of times.
We did license we did.
About a year ago, the DC Court of Appeals determined that the waste confidence decision needed additional work. The court ruled that the NRC had not appropriately accounted for the possibility of fires and spent fuel pools, and therefore had not appropriately considered the environmental impacts of storing fuel on site for an extended period. So the Commission directed the staff to update the basis for the waste confidence decision. The staff is currently putting together an environmental impact statement, taking into account the things that the court had laid out. And current expectations are we would have a draft environmental impact statement later this year for public comment, and we would go through the process of finalizing that, and then be able to update the waste confidence rule to satisfy the requirements of the court.
I have a question. How can you really maintain nuclear material for thousands of years safely?
The Department of Energy has been the part of the government that's required to provide us a design for a facility that would be able to safely store spent fuel for tens of thousands of years. The Nuclear Waste Policy Act required the Environmental Protection Agency to develop standards that would protect human health with regards to a long-term storage facility. The Department of Energy would be required to apply, to build, and license such a facility. the NRC would be the agency who would review that application to determine whether or not the facility could meet the standard laid out by the Environmental Protection Agency.
Excess of 100,000 years?
That's the current time period covered by
You need a lot of
ensuring that even if there are corrosion events or other things that affect the waste in the long-term facility, that the radioactive material, even if it
it's a lot less than it was. But I think
came out from the facility and got into the groundwater, that it would not be in such quantities that it would affect.
To restart, not to build new reactors. Alter exactly the regions that you're getting. I mean, it's not like a really sure thing, right? It's a tool, but not necessarily. It made it sound like that the technical expertise and stuff wasn't quite there, the training or the forgot exactly what wording they used, and that was the reason for the relief.
No, the relief request was because they weren't able to get the coverage that's required in the code. We inspect to the code.
And I know I read it somewhere. Examination techniques that are qualified required. That achieve the maximum practical amount of coverage obtainable within the limitations imposed by the final fabrication. Blah blah blah.
Well, no. That's exactly right. But you know how the market there's like they've got lots of
extent possible.
Right, they're saying they did the best they could with the equipment they had,
you know, it's,
because they weren't able to meet the code. They can't continue. They have to get permission to continue because they can't meet the code. We review the code and endorse our requirements of the code.
Right.
So they have to submit. They submitted what they found and what alternative they're going to do because they couldn't meet the code. So there's alternatives also in here that they have to abide by. It's just like they don't have to just not monitor it anymore. They have to continue to monitor it, but based on the history of this type of weld and the performance on pipe and other factors, the NRC at headquarters approved this relief request.
Basically allowing them to go ahead and continue as normal, but have to address the issue next fueling outage.
Right. Well, they have to address it and go ahead and do the same techniques to see if they see any other issues. It's not that they just can't look at it. They have to monitor it and look at it again. There should be. I'll have to find the exact section here, but they should. The relief request would say that they're going to have to do another inspection
It says something about
within the
mock-ups
next
are necessary to ensure the capability delivers them to properly install the equipment and perform exam. In addition, the high radiation levels inside the steam generator channel head will require remote installation capabilities, which would also require mock-up training and practice with the installation team. These factors do not allow this technology to be implemented during this current fueling outage. So in other words, it's something that needs to be done. Can't do it right now, so go ahead and fire her up, even though it's obviously not in compliance as of what, I mean, that's what I understand.
Well, that's one aspect of it. These are periodic inspections and monitoring flaws or cracks that could be in the pipe. This particular piece of piping that they're monitoring is not susceptible to this, but it needs to be monitored. So they're saying we went in during this outage, we did our examination, we weren't able to get the coverages that we want. For us to go in and have to come up with alternative techniques, other equipment, plan for the dose, basically to plan for this job. We can't do it right now, and we want to defer it to the next outage.
But
That's what this says.
isn't that kind of like, But isn't that part of the thing for the boundaries? And I mean, doesn't it have something to do with, I mean, doesn't that increase some sort of risk of something like either cracking and breaking through or something? I mean, if we can't seem to do what we need to do, then why should we move forward with starting it back up? That's my question. I mean, I don't understand why going through all that and saying what you need to do, whatever, but we can't do it right now. But they knew they were going to have to do that this past outage.
Right,
They already knew.
Right, but they didn't know what kind of coverage they were going to get. They didn't know what the performance of the equipment was going to be until they went and did the examination.
Well, how many times is it examined? Once a year?
No, they sample this. It could be once every 10 years. It's on a number of cycles. They're allowed so many cycles of operating, like every 18 months they refuel. There's so many cycles before they have to do this inspection.
Well, why wouldn't they do this inspection if they're going to refuel every 18 months? Why aren't we looking for cracks during that time?
Because there's industry data, there's industry information that says the cracks don't grow overnight and the pipes don't leak and fall apart.
Based on what?
Mock-ups? Based on, I mean, really based on what in particular?
It's based on industry performance, industry data.
How many years would that be? How many years specific would that be?
How many years specifically would what be?
Of the data you're basing this information on?
Well, there's an ASME code that has periodic requirements to sample the system based on where there's risk. So the piping systems are looked at periodically on a rotating basis based on the type of welds and the type of susceptible materials. They don't look at 100% of the piping every outage. We've approved a sampling method on certain parts of the facility.
I think what he was asking was, how big is the operating experience base in terms of reactor years? And I'm thinking hundreds of reactor years? Because you've got individual plants that have operated for 10, 20, 30 years.
That's true.
So just in general terms, the operating experience base
Of all the pressurized water reactors and the type of metals that they're using, I mean, the theory on all these systems is leak before break. I mean, that's the design. It's leaks, and they have boron in the systems. And if boron comes out, it looks like, white
That's what y'all been finding, though. That's what led to, evidently, some of the stuff being talked about, is because y'all noticed that there was boron deposits, so you knew there was a leak, is what I'm trying to say.
Not in this.
Not in Unit 2?
Absolutely not on the vessel.
No,
maybe not on the vessel head, but it was found somewhere. Where was the boron accumulations found? Because I know there was some found.
That's where I was starting to get confused, because she had another note that talked about the valve.
Right, there is a reactor fill valve that did have some boron deposits under it, and they cut that valve out.
That's the one they cut out.
Right, and they replaced it.
Okay.
This is complete. There is no leaks whatsoever. This pipe is fully intact. There's not one leak on this system whatsoever.
Unit 2.
Right, on this curve case.
On the head. Completely Unit 2 head.
No, this is the steam generator.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
This is the relief request for the steam generator.
Right, Unit 2 steam generator.
There was
nozzles had no
right.
leaks.
There was no. Yes.
Okay.
Only the dissimilar metal.
Okay, so the dissimilar metal, though, are the overlays. And so...
On Unit 2, they don't have the susceptible material. They're only required to monitor. Unit 1 had the susceptible material, and they had to remove the metal and weld over it. Unit 2 did not have to do that.
So they don't have any overlays at all?
No. They have the right metal.
The right metal. The other one was the wrong.
The less susceptible metal, correct.
That was
The alloy or whatever.
Right, whatever. I don't have that. I mean, just, for the record, I am not an in-service inspection engineer. I'm not a mechanical engineer. I don't perform this inspection. If I did, I would have more information. We have experts that come from Atlanta and from headquarters during the outage
Right.
focus on this. This relief request goes to headquarters. Technical experts up there review this.
So, but what I'm trying to say though is they were supposed to do something with this outage. They knew they were supposed to do it this outage, but they didn't do it, and they got a relief request
To delay it. Correct. And based on the issues that they've seen in the field with these type of code problems, this is not considered abnormal.
Well, they compared it to Bessie.
That's right.
I don't know if that's a good comparison.
Well,
I mean, they're operating at 68% power right now, you know, and they've been doing that for over a year since they kind of had the same problem. No, Davis Bessie. I'm saying the paper kind of said that they had some issues just like Davis Bessie, and so I was wondering.
no, I mean, Davis Bessie issues are with the head. This is not the reactor head. This is the pipe that connects to the reactor.
Well, see, in both cases, the postulated flaws did not grow to beyond 75% through wall before the fall of 2005 fueling out.
Right, so, there's flaws in all walls.
I know you can't say
There's a growth rate to crack, can grow or can stop. So as long as it doesn't change its profile, they report those results with objective evidence, then they can delay the activity that they were going to do in this outage. It's not an uncommon thing that
Yeah, cracking.
there's cracks and flaws, you know.
He's a laughing crack. Well, they do have the cracking, but the thing is, I keep going back to this. Is they knew, because this is like every, would you say, 10 years, every 4 years, every 3 years,
even more cracking in general.
I hate to say in general, because I only work with 3 plants. You know,
How about at your plant?
at my plants,
In general, at your plant?
I wouldn't.
More cracking?
I wouldn't say more cracking. I'm saying I think we find more because of more technology that we can see. I think we're looking for it.
You're looking for it because it's worrisome? Because they're aging plants?
Because plants have had issues. Davis Bessie had the problems reactor vessel had, which drove inspection on all the other plants, which has resulted in head replacements. New heads on North End. I know there's new heads on Surrey. Yeah, the new heads on North End.
That was like in 2002. That was prior to the earthquake. And I think that actually North Anna sent on a frenzy for checking on seismic instrumentation, because what we found at North Anna is we didn't have the proper seismic instruments in place where they should have been, or something. So, do we have the seismic sensors in the right places now?
The problem, they have the right sensors installed.
They didn't have located in the right locations.
And so whether you're talking 1960s, 70s technology, you're talking 2000s technology.
Well, I mean, I think we should keep up to date, and we should obviously be up to date. But since I think what happened is, since we don't have a lot of earthquakes here, I think it was kind of put on the back burner. But yeah, in reality, I mean, why should we have 1960-some sensors if we're 2000, whatever? That should have been updated, right? They were.
They were
Wait, you have 1960 sensors? No,
1970s technology earthquake sensors. They have the scratch plates.
No, that's not good.
I don't think that would fly in California. That they have
Well, we did $2 million worth of walk downs, yet we can't have.
I understand this. You know, now they know that this southeast area has higher seismic activity than even the fault that San Antonio is in California.
Or it's different. Our whole East Coast does this deal
Did you
instead.
ever hear that earthquake in Charleston, South Carolina in the 1880s, leveled the whole city? It was incredible. Magnitude upwards of 7. I mean, there's a lot of activity on this side side of the nation, apparently, which I think was, well, we know that BEPCO or whatever, whatever dominion used to be, suppressed that information when they first applied.
1977?
When they first applied to build the reactor.
On the fault line that was supposed to be not active. But we know we've got an active fault line around here that's within 11 miles of the plant.
Right, but the plant is not an active fault.
11 miles? Come on, that would be within a zone. I mean, you know, I can imagine. I mean, look at Fukushima. I mean, you know, I mean,
Was Fukushima on an active line?
oh, the whole
It was a tidal wave that, it was a tidal wave and the fault line
That was almost 100 miles away. So 11 miles could be.
Yeah, that was.
FEMA came to Louisa and was doling out money for, you know, people's basements, you know, walls and this, that, and the other. So I mean, that's a lot.
And
We need it better than 70s earthquake.
Still on.
Exactly. That system before it replaced is state of the art.
You were not.
We do now the seismic stuff. Okay.
That was then.
Now
And that was replaced when? Last year? After the earthquake?
Yes. They replaced it. It's state of the art digital.
They replaced it after they restarted and then started to replace everything.
August 2011.
No, they
I know they didn't replace it right away. It was a plan to get everything in order. So it wasn't like they put the state-of-the-art stuff in and then opened.
Yes, they put
Sensor out by the train station.
right. The system was required to be installed before they started out, but they did that. Now they've added additional sensors after they started. Sensors at the storage area.
Yeah, that was actually one of those requirements because our stuff moved. That requirement went nationwide.
So there were outlying sensors that they put in that had not been in. The sensors required for the requirements. They want to have the raw sensors.
I know
They
that
replaced them. They didn't use the old analog.
No, but it took our earthquake though to cause us to upgrade, essentially.
Well, the system was tested. Worked.
How can you test it? Drop something and just see if it goes off?
Well, you could electrically test it. And see if all the and all that. It's all digital.
Can I ask you a question? How can you put build a new reactor on a known earthquake site?
They had the earthquake last week.
How can you put a reactor on a
known earthquake site?
How often do aftershocks occur?
You gotta talk to a
Well, at the time that it was licensed,
Well, I'm just wondering because
it
in a
was
lot of parts of the
presented,
country,
the information that Virginia Power had was presented to the NRC as not being a seismic
sometimes you go pay the
reactor.
before shock or an after shock or whatever.
Well, the site is not on an active fault.
11 miles is not that far away.
The code says you can't build it. The siting criteria, Tennessee FR 100 says you can't build it on an active site. It's not on an active site.
because we keep track.
That we know of.
On the side, we keep track of USGS.
I don't have any other information.
Thanks.
Well, what was it like?
Well, if we had an 8, believe me, the plant would feel.
Pick a number.
Well, how about that 211 earthquake? Were you on site?
The geology of each area differs. That's why they're going away from it.
If it were to somehow
They're using modified locality, which is looking at the damage that occurred in your area and the scale. So you could have a lot of water in Louisa and have nothing at the plant. That's because the rocks or the way it was constructed is different than it was for someone's home that's built on the surface of the sand.
not.
No, or you could have 7 or 8 miles of pipe underground you can't see though.
Okay, so were you on the plant when it occurred?
Yes, I was in
And
control.
And felt it?
Absolutely.
Actually, I think you're in that video last year
Yeah.
y'all produced.
Yeah, I felt it, but I mean, it wasn't like we were jumping up and down. It was just, it was just a movement back and
A
forth.
rumbling.
It was a rumbling vibration, but nothing was flying off the land.
It knocked stuff off at my walls at my house.
I was sure that the porch was going to.
So what you're saying then is when we see, what you're saying is when,
So that's kind of what the container's designed.
it's not going to pick up, the sensors are not going to pick up something small?
The sensors are designed to pick up small vibrations on site, in the vicinity of the site. Just because you have an aftershock or a tremor anywhere off the site doesn't mean that it migrated through the ground and affected the site.
Okay, so our 5.8 earthquake exceeded the design basis for North Anna, and how did it exceed the design basis then? If it didn't quantify too much motion for the plant?
It exceeded the design basis numbers of like 3 seconds.
Newest guys,
You have to go into the calculation to see how long. I don't know.
for that man right there.
Probably in the neighborhood of like, I don't know the number.
I think what you got to take into account is the difference between the design basis and the design analysis. The plant is constructed and it can survive the storm. The maximum amount of shaking orientation. What Dominion did when they licensed the plant is they did a calculation up to the greatest earthquake they expected to see. So they paid for the analysis up to that point.
So it's just an analysis, not really like based on engineering.
What is the highest?
Well, engineering is the analysis.
Well, then the engineers basically said this plant can stand X. And when we had our earthquake, it exceeded X.
So then they went out and looked and see what did that change.
So they only extrapolated out to something below 5.8.
Now you're mixing the,
No, you said that
to a certain level.
to a certain level, so that was less than 5.8.
And now you're mixing the units because you're saying 5.8, which is the Richter scale, and we're going to the ground level.
That's kind of the scale.
So it's a 5.8, whatever the number, it translated into an excess movement of.
Right, the engineering looks at the acceleration of moving of the ground into different directions. So there's limits at certain frequencies. Normally low frequencies like under 10 hertz. 10 hertz is the frequency. Low frequencies are what cause trouble. So with low frequencies, there's a profile.
Right.
So this is having the ground is monitoring.
Right.
It's not monitoring for Richter scale. It's monitoring for acceleration in the ground.
Well, what about, so we had the 5.8, and then we've had over 450 aftershocks. So is there any sort of cumulative kind of effects or anything on any of the piping underground?
No, it's not.
Can we see and test all the piping underground?
The systems that run and use the piping are monitored for leaks and volumes 24/7.
So basically it's all based upon volume, and all of a sudden you see a volume drop, then you know.
If I have to add water or have to put water in a tank.
Okay, so that's basically how you keep an eye on it, is by.
And they do periodic excavations to look at piping. Not all of it, but they sample areas that they have concerns with.
So basically, is most of the piping that we have there as old as the plant is? I mean, all that piping is down there. That's essentially all original piping. I mean, we had sensors that were from the 70s, so I'm assuming a lot of the piping.
A lot of the piping.
Probably original.
And
How long of a life does that metal have down there?
Well,
We're losing stuff up
the pipe has a certain thickness, and the pipe has a certain fluid running through it, whether it's water or oil running through it. And there's a corrosion rate on that thickness of pipe, so they can monitor and test and see how they
can tell from flow or something?
Well, they can measure how thick the pipe is and monitor it, and it's getting ultrasonically determined pipe walls are thinning. So they have a model that says it should be this thick after 20 years, 30 years, and then they go in and sample it and say, yes, our thickness agrees, or no, our model's incorrect, our thickness doesn't agree. That section might need to be removed, or we don't have to do anything. But the plant is run 24/7. The piping systems are used around the clock. It's not like it's not being monitored.
No, I mean, I know it's being monitored. I was just wondering how you're
There's
able to...
gauges everywhere, there's instruments everywhere, there's people looking at the systems, the pumps running.
And how many years do you anticipate these plants to continue to operate? How many relicenses?
They already got the relicense for another 20 years.
Well, they were relicensed for 20 years. Well, I mean, we're not even in the extended license period.
Well, that's my curiosity is how is it that a plant gets a 20-year extension when it's only 23 years old? I mean, it seems like Dominion went ahead and filed extensions for all their plants. It's like all at one time, and kind of like they, I guess, got all the paperwork together. But if you're asking for a 20-year extension, how can you do it that far in advance? And on top of it, the dynamics that are in play now are we've had an earthquake, we've had these different issues come up. So, I mean, they got a 20-year extension way before I would imagine that an extension should be given. I mean, their plant was only like 23 years old when they get in 2003, I think. They filed for extensions for both units and I think Surrey as well, all at one time. Even though the plants are all different
The
ages.
license renewal has certain programs that have to be in place for them to monitor components and systems that are aging.
We don't have that one right here, though. I mean, that's why this one's getting extensions. We don't have for that one that's we don't have everything. What I'm trying to say is way in advance they get an extension for 20 years. The plant's only 23 years old.
Right. The extension is to operate
for another 20 years on top of the 40 years.
as long as you maintain your programs correctly and that when we inspect them, that they're following all the regulatory requirements. It just doesn't mean they can operate 20 years with nobody looking at it. They have to meet all the requirements.
No, but what I mean is
There's a review period.
well, how come, when was the review period, though?
License renewals generally take about 2 years, longer if there's a hearing involved. The basic principle is if the plant's operated for at least 20 years, there's enough knowledge base there at the plant for the plant operator, in this case Dominion, to know which systems are subject to aging. They compare that against the industry's generic plans to take care of systems that aren't normally inspected in terms of a passive system. In other words, just the basic concrete that holds up plant structures, pipes that don't normally need inspection, the supports for those. All of these things are passive systems that fall outside of the NRC's regular inspection requirements. So for license renewal, Dominion had to show that they had plans in place to keep track of all these passive systems. And if they showed signs of aging, they had the proper means in place to counteract that, the systems would keep working properly. What we were saying is a license extension gives the plant the opportunity to keep meeting its requirements for another 20 years. If at any time, doesn't matter if it's year 25, year 37, or if they get an extension year 43 or 50, if they're not meeting the requirements, they don't let them operate.
Well, I can appreciate that, but I'm still saying, when I asked at one meeting before, I said, well, when, because I know it doesn't expire in 2015, 16, I don't know when the first 40 years.
It was 79 that they came.
Well, the first one came on 79 and the second one 80. So in other words, when the plant was only 23 years old, they went ahead and filed for another 20 years.
The plants had operated for at least 20 years. That gave Dominion in enough information about the plant to be able to say, in comparison with the industry's generic plans for dealing with aging systems, we know how to handle passive systems.
I don't think anyone at that point actually knows once a system's going to be 60 years old exactly what's going to happen though. So
They don't need to know exactly what's going to happen because they're monitoring it.
Okay.
They have some inspection programs in place to look at this.
Both the active systems, the pumps, the valves, the other control systems, those are regularly inspected.
Yeah, but we have full metal overlay wells now.
And those are inspected on a regular basis.
But how long is that going to last? I mean, can we expect that to last 60 years?
If there's a flaw found in the overlay, there are requirements a plant would have to follow to repair that indication in order to continue operating.
Well, except for the issue we have going on Unit 2 right now, that we don't have the proper whatever in line, that we're going to go through another fueling outage when it should be done, and it's not 100%, we're going to do 70% cracking or whatever. I mean, so I can understand.
No, in filing to defer that inspection report,
Right.
Dominion had to justify why it was safe to operate until the point at which the inspection. Our specialists at headquarters went over that information and we came to the conclusion that yes, the request was justified and it was appropriate to let the plant operate until the point that they conduct the inspection in the best way possible, taking into account protecting their own workers against radiation dose during the plant outage and meeting the otherwise meeting the requirements of the regulation.
But I mean, it's based on what then? It's just based on.
It's based on the flaw that was in the metal and whether it grew or not, whether the crack grew or not.
No, so do you,
I just don't understand. I mean, I know what he's saying.
when you are at the plant, are you on top of these things all the time? I mean, you know, they tell you that this is what's going on with this particular well, and you say, okay, well, we have to report this, and then you go to Atlanta or wherever the expert is, and you give them all this computer model data, but you, like, every
I got to do
time.
mock-ups on this one. This is something you can mock up.
In this particular code case review, we had an expert in metallurgy and mechanical look at this both from headquarters and from Atlanta. I was not directly involved.
Are you from Atlanta?
Atlanta, but I'm not a metallurgist in this kind of stuff. There are other inspectors there in Atlanta
That are experts in the code and know all the ins and outs of the code and study it. And we have experts that had to go to headquarters to get approval, to get relief on this code.
So the metal overlays, the biggest one that's out there so far is Unit 1 around the country, which is the largest metal overlay ever. So, I mean, are we gonna?
Well, no, North Anna is ahead in the industry in mitigating or solving this problem ahead of other facilities. So they're not, it's not like they have the biggest problem, it's just they've done
Not the
it
biggest
sooner.
problem, it's the biggest metal overlay.
Well, they've done it sooner. I mean, it's welding. Everybody welds the pipes together. There's not.
No, but it was the largest. I mean, in other words, you got smaller ones, you got larger ones. Supposedly, it was one of the largest ones done when it was done.
And anything that Dominion has done in terms of has to meet the requirements of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, although they don't use that for
ASME code.
They have to meet that code, and they have to meet our requirements.
But the requirements are always done analytically on a whole bunch of numbers and stuff. So, I mean, how do you know the numbers are always wrong?
It's based on operating experience, testing, and analysis.
But all these plants are starting to break down now. That's why we had to do the metal overlays. This is not like you build a plant and all of a sudden this is a new property.
The inspections required have seen indications that come before something even starts to leak. Well, the overlays are meant to resolve that issue before it gets to the point of affecting the plant's.
The weld overlay prevents the crack from continuing to grow.
It also prevents you from being able to utilize the ultrasound thing, testing as well.
No, weld overlays are tested by ultrasonic and other non-destructive examination.
That's how you determine whether they've been put on correctly.
Right, but that's what I was saying about the one paper was saying that they're not sure if that testing protocol is really the best protocol, if it'll actually pick up everything. So I mean, obviously, as the industry goes, you're going to learn new things and this, that, and the other. But I'm simply saying that when they first did North Anna 1, they found, when they opened it up, they found 6 cracks. So I don't think they really knew it was 6 cracks there originally. So I mean,
well, we gave them a
but it's not like, well, why didn't you just get a new part? Why did you have to do the?
Well, you have to join the parts, and you join them by welding.
So the original parts were joined by welding. Those weldings leaked.
No, the material that it was welded with, and I don't have the elements in front of me.
Whatever broke down.
There were certain elements in this metal that were susceptible to primary water stress corrosion cracking, which means hot water with the chemistry of the primary caused potentially cracks to form inside these parts. So the fix of that is to remove that material and put on another material that is not susceptible to another weld material. So that's what they did on unit 1. They took away the susceptibility and put on a good metal or a better metal that has better elements in it that doesn't create cracks or flaws.
What is the maximum life of the weld, lifespan of the weld?
Right. Well, I think that's what we're doing too right now, though. Is
the welds are monitored. They're monitored periodically. You can't say nothing. You know, you can't say it lasts for 30, 40, 50 years. It's monitored periodically. Nothing is just built and then forgotten about.
How long? What time span for each inspection?
It varies based on where it is in the piping system. It could be every outage, every 18 months, or it could be every 10 years. It varies. It counts on the component. They have a program in place that that looks at all those different pieces.
I know it. I know what you're saying. But
no, it was hot. It was hot.
It was not that hot. It was summer, but it's been hotter. It was not very hot.
We did fine without the. I simply think that it needs to be No, because we're going to create waste that we have nowhere to do, except for like, okay, let's.
It's a political issue. It's not a technical issue.
Yucca Mountain's not feasible because the geologists found that it's not stable. Who wants it? Do you want it? Do you want it in your backyard? Would you rather have the nuclear waste in your back? Where do you live? Here?
I live in Rico County.
Okay. Would you like the nuclear waste in your backyard? Nobody wants it. So why do we keep creating something nobody wants? It's so toxic.
Because it will.
Maybe one day we'll figure out how to reprocess it. Maybe we'll be able to use it. I mean, yeah.
Well, we can reuse it if we want to spend the money for it. It's too expensive to use here when it's used elsewhere in the world.
Excuse me, nuclear disposal is more than political will. It's the technology built. We cannot be self-insured. We know how to dispose of it properly. We talk about stuff that has for 1,000 years, plus 100,000, 48 years. How can we maintain and build a safe site? We know what the Earth will be like 10,000 years from now, 100 years from now.
Yeah, I was going to say,
how can we?
For people in 10,000 years don't dig here. I mean,
But it needs to be isolated. That's the whole point of deep geology.
Honestly, we've got 68,000 tons already here. And we're creating 2,000 tons more every year. Where are we going to put it? And then we're going to have to drive it somewhere. We're going to have to put it on our highways. We're going to put it on our waterways. We're going to have to put it, on our trains. I mean, when's enough risk? What do we need to do to really realize? I mean, maybe, have you gone to Fukushima yet?
I have not been.
Have you gone to Fukushima? Maybe that's what Dominion needs to do.
Well, we've seen a lot of people over there.
Y'all sent a lot of people to Fukushima.
Isn't that right?
I know people, I know. I mean, and actually wear the monitors and see how much radiation is. And
put that material on.
I'm just simply saying, it seems like a lot of people that want more nukes, haven't really gone there to see what the people are going through. They haven't gone there to see that the farmers can no longer farm. We went from a 1 millisievert, to 20 immediately. What about the children? 40% of the children in Fukushima are showing up with nodules on their thyroids. I mean, that's, we're talking about 300,000 children in that one region. I mean, radiation based for an adult is what all the tests have been on, a male adult. is different than a child. So what I'm trying to say is we got elevated levels of tritium at North Anna. We do. I mean, the surface water tests for last year are all higher than even Surrey. So, I mean, when is enough enough? We keep saying, oh, but it's affordable. Affordable for who? For the genetic, you know, forever for our children? Is it going to be okay that no one has thyroids anymore? Is it going to be okay if they can't reproduce and they're sterile? I mean, how is that affordable? Fukushima's not affordable. They have no plan. They don't know what to do.
Well, we are,
you know, I mean, do we want that kind of risk? I don't. I don't want that kind of risk.
We are one of the safest operators in the United States.
Then we're lucky.
We don't do anything if it isn't safe.
I understand you all do, but you can't control Mother Nature. You can't control terrorism. I mean, you know,
we have regulations, and we have
y'all do. I know y'all mean well. I mean, I think basically the world goes around every day because basically man is good. But when we see what happened in Moore with the tornado, the F4 or F5, whatever it was, and taking a path and the destruction that it caused, and how could it happen again? 1999, it almost took the same path. I mean, so I mean,
well,
you guys can mean well.
The containment buildings are built to withstand 320-mile-an-hour winds.
Well, that would be the F5. Then.
That would be
which we don't get.
Greater than anything
ever recorded.
Well, the earthquake in Fukushima was one of the largest ones recorded at the time. So
the earthquake actually shut the plant down, and the plant operated safely because the diesel generators started up like they were supposed to.
1/4 failure.
It was the tsunami.
Oh, you're talking about Fukushima.
I'm talking about Fukushima.
One of ours failed, but yeah.
It failed briefly, but each diesel can take up the load of one. You know, all the safety systems. We have.
I'm just saying, man has this thing that we can control. It's good. We got smart people, and I'm glad. But you get to a point where you have to start analyzing risk and realize, how are we going to deal with waste for 10,000 years? I mean, these plants aren't going to last forever. And when 60 years comes up, those plants are going to say bye-bye. Or are they going to last 80 years? 100 years?
At some point, they will have to be shut down.
At what point would that be? Well, would that?
Well, it would have to be. It'd be an economic decision.
Well, hopefully it's an economic decision right now for you guys to realize that the expense for a new reactor is way too much compared to what y'all could do in investing in other alternatives or getting out there and doing something different.
Let me tell you, we are all for alternative energy.
Isn't that the role of the SCC to incorporate everybody's opinion and legal and technical experts?
It's good if everybody stops getting fooled when they say, oh, it's going to cost X. And it's always a lie, because then they come back and go, oh, well, we need a few more $1 million. And then we need a few more $1 million. Or like in the new site that they're building down there, where is it, in South Carolina or Georgia or wherever. Oh, wrong rebar, daggone it. Oh, wrong. It's great. I mean, anyone that's built a house knows that you can come out with a figure saying, I'm going to spend $100,000, but by the time you tweak it or do this, that, or the other, you've spent more. I'm just simply saying a new reactor with the overall thinking of the waste issue, and even though that earthquake, y'all don't make a lot of woohoo about it, but to me, 5.8 and 450 aftershocks is a lot.
Hey, how are you?
I understand.
I want to introduce myself.
I think it's a bad investment.